Evening and welcome to City Council on this January 28th of 2025. We appreciate your attendance here and those who have joined us online. We'll begin our meeting this evening by hearing from Council Member Barker, and he will give us a invocation or thought at his choice and then lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Barker.
We'll start with an invocation. Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the opportunity we have tonight to gather as a city council and staff and to discuss the matters of North Ogden City. We're grateful for all that Thou hast given us and for the opportunity to live and to reside in this area. Please bless that we'll be guided by Thy influence and that we'll be able to make decisions that are best for our community and residents. And these things we say in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Barker. We'll now go into our consent agenda. Council, are there any conflicts of interest that need to be disclosed this evening based upon our agenda? I see none. So we'll now go to item number 2, which is a discussion or action to approve the January 7th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes. Is there any additional corrections that haven't been submitted to the city recorder? If there are none, I would look for a motion then to approve those minutes.
Mayor, I move that we approve January 7th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes.
Thank you, Councilmember Severing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Pulver. Any further discussion on those minutes? None. All in favor of the motion to approve the January 7th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item number 3, Council, is the appointment of additional Planning Commission members due to the expiration of 2 of our Planning Commission members who have served very diligently, which we hope to recognize in our next coming meeting for their great service. There was a committee comprised of Nicole Nancarrow, who is a current Planning Commission member, John Call, our city manager and attorney, Scott Hess, who's our Director of Planning and Economic Development, also Mr. Chris Pulver from our City Council, Blake Severing from our City Council, and myself. I want to thank them for the very thorough process they went through. We had great applicants, which is always good, that you have a choice. So tonight, Council, I would recommend, based upon our evaluation, to be appointed to the North Ogden City Planning Commission, Mr. Lauren Gardner. I think many of you know Lauren. Lauren served as the city engineer for a number of years, is very familiar with the city. And also Mr. Steve Neighbor. Steve is the Chief Financial Officer of Weber State University and has served that community quite well and is interested in serving our city. So I'd be happy, Council, to answer any questions you may have. I think the committee was in favor of kind of tweaking the direction, make sure that they spend adequate time on planning in the city for growth. And so do you have any questions regarding those 2 names? All right, then I would ask for your approval by voice vote, a motion to approve Mr. Lauren Gardner and Mr. Steve Neighbor as new Planning Commission members.
Mayor, I move that we approve Mr. Lauren Gardner and Mr. Steve Neighbor as Planning Commission members of North Ogden City.
Thank you, Councilmember Dalpaz. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Councilmember Pulver. Any further discussion? All in favor of appointing those 2 gentlemen to the Planning Commission, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We have a unanimous vote to appoint those 2 individuals. We'll now enter into our active agenda and we'll seek those who would like public comments, either online John, if we have anybody that's joined us online, we'd like to hear from them if they would like, or anyone here. You probably get sick of hearing this, but if you'd limit your comments to no longer than 5 minutes, and if you'd state if you're a resident of North Ogden. So anyone who would like to make public comment is welcome to do so at this time. John is indicating no one online. Anyone here? Okay, we will move on to item number 5. And this is a discussion or action to consider a resolution to set a budget hearing for an amended budget proposal for the Youth City Council. Before we ask our city manager and attorney John Call to comment on this, let me just express my opinion. I don't believe there's a necessity to hold a resolution for the budget hearing for that purpose. By itself, I had the opportunity to meet with Councilmember Watson for an hour and a half. We had, I thought, very good discussion. And we have identified ways that if an advisor is needed, that it can be funded out of the current budget of the city without any increase. That would be funded primarily by funds that have usually been paid, for instance, to Northern Ice for the preparation and serving of hot chocolate at the North Pole. That was done by our youth council this year. So instead of paying an outside entity, we'll let that money stay in the budget. Additionally, we talked also about the city youth council selling soft drinks and water at Cherry Days. I can't remember how John put this. What is it? Eat
what you kill.
eat what you kill. So I think we're in agreement that the city youth council, if they can raise the money by serving and working, that that would fund the need for respective folks to help, advisors. Also, Councilmember Watson and myself had discussion, and she fully understands that because this is her assignment from the city council, that it would be necessary to take a different approach in regards to compensating her if needed, as the city council stipend is set by ordinance. Also, I had the chance to review with Councilmember Watson the events and activities that they are involved in. And Councilmember Watson, I think, has done a good job of identifying those things that would be most helpful to the objectives of the City Youth Council, which, by the way, we discovered, unless John has found out differently, we actually don't have an ordinance in our city creating City Youth Council and what its objectives are. So I've challenged John to prepare an ordinance so that as we move forward, we'll know what the purpose is and how it works. But Councilmember Watson has removed some activities from the going forward budget. We also had an opportunity to discuss maybe the implementation of a process. The largest expenditure is for the training up at Utah State University, the conference up there. I am not aware of a time when we've had such a number of folks in our youth council. I think 25 is my understanding. And so we talked about maybe those who are in it the first year would evidence their commitment by attendance and service, and then have the opportunity to go to the council, the training. And then those in the second and third year, that would reduce the number, and I think makes sense, but that'll be up to Councilmember Watson. But the budget that will be presented for 2025 does exclude numerous things that would reduce the need. We also had a discussion about volunteers, and I want to thank council members who have volunteered on such short notice to help with the recent event down at the city, at the state capitol, and also helping transport folks up to Utah State University. But it's very obvious. My wife had this responsibility a couple of years ago, And the reason of such short notice to the council is because parents or volunteers who said they could drive at the last minute couldn't, and which is not unusual. My wife experienced that numerous times. So we're going to move forward in a little bit different direction. And so I believe, unless Mr. Call says otherwise, that there would be no need to set a budget hearing for at least the City Youth Council, and that money will be generated by the work they do in the community. So, John, is there something I missed, or Councilmember Watson?
So council, we did announce it just under the new rules. The council sets the budget hearings. That's the new way it's done. So with those things in mind, I don't think there's a need for it to either amend the stipends at this time or the budget for the youth city council. So.
Okay. Councilmember Watson, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No.
Okay. So I think we can pass that item on our agenda with no action. Do you agree with that, council? Okay. We will move on to item number 6. And this is a resolution for consolidated fee schedule amendments. Also, Mr. Call will be leading this discussion. So, Mr. Call.
Thank you, Mayor. So council, there's a little bit of cleanup in this agenda item. As you could see from the staff report, there is also some information related to the request from SWAT that you asked to come back this week, and they've joined us again this week to help with this discussion. But let's go over the cleanup items first, just so the council's aware. There's a new fee being added for USB flash drives. So we used to give everyone CDs when they would come in and do records requests with the police department. Most of our computers don't have CD drives anymore. And we don't let people plug their USBs into our computers. So they basically, with that $10, purchase their very own shiny brand new USB, take it home with them. So that's on there as a $10 fee. There's a cleanup in the alignment of the solid waste rates to make it clear that non-residents aren't paying less than residents for the second blue can, I think is the one it was. And then the last one is a cleanup on the street cut excavation permit, moving the penalty to the fee up so that it's clearer, it's easier to find in it, and then also doubling it the way it used to be. Because what happened is we increased our street cut fee, but we didn't increase the penalty, and our code says the penalty is double the street cut fee. So that's updating that number to the correct amount. And then the real item to talk about is the fees related to the use of the athletic fields. The recommendation that, or what the things the council probably needs to talk about is, obviously the fee was going to end up being much higher than what the council thought it would be, based on the numbers that we just kind of said we're going to do what Pleasant View does. Pleasant View doesn't actually charge what their fee schedule says. What they do is they charge a fee per park as opposed to a fee per field. And so what staff is recommending is that we just do the same thing and mirror what Pleasant View has done, which is essentially they're charging $125 per field for game day or $250 for the entire park. Because Shady Lane has 2 kind of large fields in it, and they do break them down into smaller fields depending on their schedule. But I think we would just not, as a nuance, just say, hey, this is how many fields are in the park. That's what we rent for. The hard thing with doing it by park is some of our parks only have 1 field. And so if you said it's, what they charge, which is, I think they charge $1,715 for the season for their park. McGriff and Mountain View Park only have 1 field, and so they'd be paying a lot more. The way I calculated it out is we have 7 fields in 4 parks as opposed to 8 fields in 4 parks, and that would come to each season. So in spring they'd pay $69.50, and in fall they'd pay $69.50. What they brought last to the council, I think, was a flat for the whole year of $7,300. So this is almost twice what they came in asking for last time. Dave and I talked a little bit. His crew did a little looking into some of the fees or some of the expenses we have on fields. And we currently, by our guess, based on the square footage, are spending about $14,000 a year on herbicide for the soccer fields. But understand SWAT's not the only one who uses them. I mean, they're there whenever SWAT's not in season or not playing or actively using them. And so that's kind of what I think staff's recommending, is that flat fee for just the park to be used for games. And then we would recommend that we not charge them the individual reservation during the week for practices unless they specifically want to guarantee they have a spot. Some of the comp teams might prefer to pay for that money, and that we just charge the $10 an hour like we would anyone who wants to rent it, as opposed to charging more for a league reservation for practices. That's kind of what's been recommended. And they're here, and I sent them an email today saying, here's everything I'm going to say. I think I've touched on everything I said I was going to say, so that they could have a chance to respond. And Dave's here for questions. I'm here for questions, but I think if council's okay, it would be appropriate for them to share their thoughts and feelings about this proposal, and counter it with anything they'd suggest as well.
What questions do you have for Mr. Call before we invite the folks from SWAT to give us their input? Any questions?
So you said,
Councilmember Pulver?
so you said 250 per day or per?
So what I did is I just said it was basically at $125 per field.
Okay.
And then we have 7 fields that we rent on Saturdays to them. So that's, what I have written down is, this is what Becca told me. There's 3 at Orton, 1 at McGriff, 1 at Mountain View, and 2 at Wadman. And so when you multiply that out, it ends up being $69.50 instead of, it would be a little bit more if you added if you did it by park, because McGriff and Mountain View only have 1 field. So we shouldn't charge them $250 for that day, I guess is the thought.
So the 6950, that's 6,950 is for the year. Is that right?
That's for the season. So
The
spring season would be $69.50, fall would be $69.50. And then if they wanted to do, there's also the question of, sometimes they do 8 days of soccer. I'd probably say just charge them a flat rate for the season, and if they do 8 Saturdays, I'm not sure that's the end of the world, because sometimes that's a makeup day or a tournament day. That's up to the council.
Any other comments or questions of John? Councilmember Pulver?
So I guess because Pleasant View, if they don't follow the fee schedule, I guess I was kind of confused by that. But when you said that, and then do we give any, since they're a partner, city partner, are we providing any cut rate to begin with? I guess is the question. If it's 125 for anyone, are they 50% off because they're a partner with the city? Do I understand what?
Yeah. So the reason I say Pleasant View doesn't follow their ordinance is their ordinance says, just like ours currently does, their fee schedule, it's $250 per day per field. And Shady Lane has 2 fields in it, but they only charge them $250 for the whole day. So, and there's lots of reasons for that, I'm sure, but that's what they're paying over there. I asked them what they were paying, and they sent me the invoice for, I think it was from 2004 for the 7 Saturdays. They reserved it through the sports sites. It was $1,750 for that field 7
So it's
nights.
either a mistake or on purpose. We just don't know. Okay.
Could you also tell me what they were paying annually last year?
To us, I think it was $1,000 per season. So it was $2,000 for the year total.
So we're going from 2,000 to almost 14,000, but at least it's not 50,000. Is that right?
That's what I'm suggesting. Yeah.
I think it was actually 100,000, wasn't it?
Oh, okay.
Back
It was a lot.
It was a lot. It was an awful lot.
I'm good with this just because the whole point when we did this back, I think it was in the summer, was to match what Pleasant View was doing. And so this is essentially matching what Pleasant View is doing. So it seems fair that we're both the same. So
Okay,
I'm okay with it.
Councilmember Barker?
You mentioned last time, and I'm sure you're gonna address it, but is there a way to make it go into effect in the fall? Because you've already raised the fees for this year, so that'd be my own. If I was paying attention correctly last time, I'm sure you'll address when you come up, but that'd be my suggestion.
Any other comments or questions?
I have a question for them.
Okay, let's invite the folks up to get input from them, their feelings, and then Councilmember Watson, at the appropriate time, you can ask them
Thank you.
questions.
Thank you for having us again. Appreciate you guys. Just, so you cleared one of our questions was what fields were counted at which park. So we're doing 3 at Wharton. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
That's what Becca said, yeah.
Okay, and 2 at Wadman. And maybe a question for you then is how much of Orton is going to be available for this spring? Yeah, we don't know. Okay. Okay.
As of right now, they've reseeded, so it should be all available as long as.
Okay, perfect. And then, so one thing that wasn't addressed when in your email was a lot of our comp teams play games during the weeknights. And so when we've done the blanket reservation for practices and games, that was so our comp teams could go in and play during the weeknights as well. And so that was not addressed in the email, is the cost then to play a game on the weeknights or to maybe rent a couple apart for a couple nights a week if we need to schedule comp games. So
That would be on an as-needed basis. Is that my understanding, or do you have a regular schedule you'd need that?
Well, it's not as regular as the recreation schedule, but and we don't do those schedules. That's done by a different organization that does those schedules. So we just give them the availability of the fields and then they put out a schedule. So once that schedule is out, then we'll know when those games are. So then, but that doesn't come out until a lot closer to the season. So it's really, so it makes it harder anyways, you know, if we don't know, if we don't have it reserved and then the schedule comes out and somebody else has already reserved it, you know, and then it makes it hard, you know, like even for us to reschedule rain out games or reschedule games, you know, if other organizations or teams have come in and reserved it for practices and they've reserved it every Tuesday for the whole season, eventually that's going to fill up where there won't be any weeknights available. And then that puts a big constraint on.
Sounds like we need
play
a
their
couple
games.
more soccer fields in the city.
that'd be great.
John, what recommendation do you have to address that question, that issue?
So, I mean, I'd probably say that, that we could set a rate for a league weeknight because they're not going to be using it for you're not going to be using it for 4 games, most likely on a weeknight. So it could just be an hourly rate. You could maybe stick at that 25 or you could go to the 10. You know, I'm not sure we really talked about those last time. So it could be, it's kind of up to the council. It is an issue with the scheduling. Because right now for, you know, what we've done in the past is for the $2,000 a year, they just, you know, kind of took over all those parks for 5 nights a week and Saturdays for $2,000 a year. So anything we do is going to be more of an imposition on them. And then when the comp team would have a team, I'm assuming they just move their practices around to avoid the comp league games. So
Generally considered games take precedence over practices. So
Councilmember Pulver, you have a question for them?
Maybe a question or just an overall comment that when we created, you know, the policy for supporting partnered events and activities, and I keep going back to the fact that when we support one of the organizations, which we put on there, SWAT Soccer, is that we provide a discount when there's not what is it? There's several things. The city employees are not involved. The city has no additional liability. That city buildings and or parks are used at a discount. So I guess my point is that we can keep the fee whatever we want and just provide SWAT with a different set rate if it's not managing the park, managing the park costs more this year. And so therefore, instead of $2,000, we give $4,000. Just throwing out a number. But I guess my point is that to wrangle fees, just to wrangle fees, if it's a partnered organization, which they are, then I would say they should be treated differently, but the city already has a policy on how to deal with them. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, as a discounted, you're right. I think the difference is what you've got here. You've got a constant high use versus our other partners. I think, the rate is discounted from what's in the fee schedule, right? From 100,000 to 14. So I think if I'm understanding this right, the question would be, do we charge a fee for rental or a reduced fee? But we've got to try to balance this because the parks
Get hammered, yes.
they have to be available too for citizens, right? During the week. So I'm thinking the question on the table right now is, correct me if I'm wrong, is how do they address the issue of comp with the reservation? Is that included in the 14,000 and they can do it one or twice a week, or what do you want to do in that regard? Councilmember Barker?
This is the opinion of Barker. Is that how Pulver's opinion? This is Barker's opinion?
Barker's opinion.
Yeah. I'm of the opinion that we should just pay the 14,000 and let schedule during the week. That's the average, and that's the benefit of being partnered with the city is we're not going to try to schedule every practice or every game. That's Barker's opinion. Keep it easy. Keep it simple.
In regards to Barker's opinion, is there a number of days that they could do that?
Nope. I'd say
So they
let's
could reserve it every night?
And then to clarify, let's do it 1 year and see how it is.
Okay.
See if it
Just-
goes easy, and that's,
Just
Starting in the
inquiring.
fall, is that what you're saying?
yeah.
Inquiring.
Let's keep
Councilmember
it simple.
Valpez?
That's
Dalpas's opinion is I agree with Barker's opinion.
So this is a darker opinion? That's Dalpaz and Barker?
I think it's also important to note that, as they mentioned last time, if they have it reserved and another soccer team shows up, they just split the field in half or divide it up and everyone still gets to play. So they're not necessarily kicking everybody out. They're just making sure that they know they can or not. Practice is probably a better word than play.
Oh, Councilmember Watson?
Yeah, I just had a question. So how long would you imagine, or how long do you think until this would drastically affect? I've been a coach, I said that last time for you, in SWAT, and we would have a hard time, even as it was before, trying to find a spot to practice with our kids. And I worry that if we open up the weekend or the weekdays to anyone at $10 an hour or even $25 an hour, that some teams will steal that time. And so how long do you think before your coaches are like, I can't coach because there's no place to go? Again, like you've seen that same problem. I mean, that was a pretty big problem before, right?
Yeah, and that's even with the system that we have in place now, it still is a problem because when you add in the recreation teams, usually starting the 1st of August, there's a lot. So so if you do end up at this point, the competitive teams are usually practicing in other areas because they do want their half a field or a full size field to themselves on a regular basis. So they're just going other places, and they're fine doing that. But yeah, it wouldn't take very long when they realize that they could reserve a place a little bit more local, and it wouldn't take very long before you'd have 5 or 6 comp teams taking up the whole week.
Right.
And then all the recreation
teams
won't have any place to practice.
Yeah. So what I'm curious about is if we go with Barker plan here and say we don't need to charge them for the weekday rental, then do we say it's not open for anyone, or they just get in free, or you know what I'm saying? We don't want to give it away to the comp teams.
It seems, by the way they've explained it, it seems like it's kind of a non-issue. It's kind of a known fact that they've got dibs on the field, but they're happy to share them as there's more space available. Am I gathering that pretty
Yeah, we've
correctly?
never kicked anybody off, and that's
Yeah, so it's
just
kind of,
mainly so it's available for anybody to show up and use,
right.
and nobody can say this field is mine. So no one else can.
I'm
use
just
it.
saying we can't take their name off of it or else they would lose that, the first
Yeah.
dibs or the sharing ability, right?
We do have teams that call us and say, can I reserve, this field for this day at this time? And we just say, well, we can't. It's just open for anybody to show up
It's
and
first
practice.
come, first serve, but games take precedence. So then if we do have the comp teams coming and playing during the week, then the games take precedence over those fields. And then at Orton Park, we've also been playing just this last fall, 1 or 2 nights a week for our recreation games as well, just because there's not enough time in a Saturday for our older games because they're about an hour and a half each. So we do carry over to weeknight games for our recreation program too, for those older full-size fields.
Councilmember Severing, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you first for all that you guys do. I know that that is a real challenge. My youngest is 25. We don't worry too much about soccer anymore in our lives. But I was a coach for several years, okay? And I know that that can be a kind of a thankless job, but I'm just wondering, it's one thing for us to sit up here. Are we missing something that we could best help you guys with this challenge on weeknights? I mean, are we causing more problems? What would you say we need to what would you recommend that we do?
My recommendation is to have, however, you have to write it out, but just kind of have a fee that includes 6 days a week.
Okay. But as far as like having somebody show up and take the field, that's not a cool thing too, if you guys already have that reserved. So
Yeah.
how can we help you there? Or is that just kind of something that's just going to be part of the turf and part of the problem?
Well, I mean, I guess we haven't really had a lot of issues. The only one that we have issues like outside groups coming in would be the Orton Park because it's closer to Ogden. So that one gets a lot of teams from Ogden that aren't part of our organization, but it's a big enough place that we haven't really had a lot of issues, or at least no one's really complained, about not having space there.
So you're pretty agreeable with the Barker opinion,
Yeah.
which has now become the Severing third opinion.
Councilmember Pulver.
So, I mean, are we just talking $6,000 additional to what they normally were paying every season? I mean, is that what I'm hearing?
Is it broken down by game?
Right, but what I'm saying is that seems, I don't know, a massive
And we
increase, but if
just
that is
figured
what-
out per kid is going to be 8 to 10% increase to go to we figured 12, didn't we, or 13?
Yeah, well, it's
Okay.
about $5 a player increase.
It's better than the
Yeah.
60.
Okay, all right. I just don't want to like have sticker shock and all of a sudden we lose
I-
90% of the.
I mean,
players.
Running the numbers, it's about, if we were to extend that to the players for registration next year, it's about a $5 per player
Okay.
increase.
Okay. And then I'm gonna just 2 seconds to give me maybe 3 seconds. So when we build fields in Barker Park, my opinion is that don't put goalposts in the ground. Okay, just making sure everybody's nodding.
Well, and on that, I
Mm.
think they mentioned last time that they have some partnerships with the places that might build the field. And if we head down that road and end up in there, then the group that sponsored the construction would probably get those fields for free, and they could, and priority on reservations. I mean, that would just be part of the understanding of the fields getting constructed is there may be some groups, and it wouldn't be the weekenders, it would be the organized youth leagues and stuff that would get those.
So I'm just seeking clarification here, only of coaching 1 year, 35 or 40 years ago.
What?
I'm a little bit confused on the reserving of the fields, because if every field in our city is reserved for soccer, and don't take this wrong, our citizens are paying a lot more than $14,000 a year for those parks. And I agree they need to have a reservation thing, but my feeling is it ought to be limited to X number of days per week. Because if they are all reserved every night, and we probably ought to notify the fact that they're reserved so people don't get in some spitting match with these folks. We don't want them to be enforcing. But it would just seem like to me that because, Councilmember Bark says we can give it a try, but they've got to commit for a whole season now, and we can't back that up. So how do we deal to make sure that there's equal use of these fields if a family wants to go out and throw frisbees or whatever they want? Because these are city parks. And I know there's a high percentage use of the kids from North Ogden. So yeah, maybe you could answer my question.
Well, first, it's not every city park. There's lots of parks that we don't use within North Ogden City.
So which parks would you like to have reserved?
Well, the ones that,
The 4.
the 4 that we've always used. There's other ones that we don't use that, like
And
football has
refresh
their
my
own
memory,
field.
which 4 of those?
Orton,
Mountain View.
Mountain View, McGriff, and Wadman.
Wadman.
Yeah,
So,
quite a bit of our parks.
and then the second thought is, this is the way it's been for at least 5-6 years. So if you haven't had any complaints yet, I don't think that's going to change.
Councilmember Watson?
When I was a coach, if I would show up with my team and there was a family playing Frisbee, we would find someplace else to go.
You're a
It-
nice person.
Well, we didn't know that the SWAT had it reserved for us and that we had the option to kick people out. I mean, they're not advertising that to their coaches, is all I'm saying. So I feel like it's almost like they're guaranteeing that no one can reserve it, but they're not holding anyone to the reservation. So they're allowing anyone to use it. So we could set it up as a council to just say no one can reserve it, and it would ideally be the same. But
It seems like the reason it's so essential that they have 6 days a week is because from my experience with kids doing soccer, there's a million teams that are practicing throughout the week, and they all have a different, one coach's availability is that they can do Monday night. Another coach's availability is that they can do Thursday night. And so and I just think with the amount of acreage that we have in North Ogden, I just don't think it's going to be an issue. I think we're okay to just do this blanket approach.
Okay, Councilmember Parker, did you have another?
Just to clarify, my thought was, instead of saying you reserved it, keep it the way it is. If you need to schedule a game during the weeknight, that was my thought, is you could schedule a game during the week. But I don't want to over legislate how we're going to schedule our parks for everybody. I think we need a full-time person to do that.
I'm saying they ought to be reserved, but I would just say, council, you have 23,000 citizens in this community who have access to those parks if they need them. And it may not have been a problem, but if that becomes a problem, just remember the fact that they're paying a lot more than $14,000 a year in taxes to fund recreation and parks. That's my only point. I'm not against the use of them, but they ought to, if they're going to be reserved, people ought to know they're reserved. If families come, there ought to be a sign up there that says, hey, it's reserved on Tuesday and Thursday or Friday nights or whatever. Because I've also been in the parks, and if somebody wants to go use the Boweries and have a nice family meeting, there's a lot of kids running around. So that's my only point, is that these are city parks and our citizens should have access to the parks. They shouldn't be closed out with, and I appreciate the cooperation, but frankly, we're getting a city, we can't continue to operate like Mayberry, because it's going to grow and things are going to change. And your job, in my opinion, is to anticipate and avoid potential problems, not to deal with what is today. That's my 5 cents worth. Councilmember Fulmer?
So I'm just making sure that you have more than one bullet in your, because you said Mayberry. We're not Mayberry anymore, just to make sure that he has more than one bullet in his gun over there. Anyways, does he even remember? I don't know if he's old enough for. Anyway,
Barney?
Barney Fife? No, nothing. Anyway, moving on. So the I can't even remember how many years. 15? No, it can't be that many. Close. Of coaching in North Ogden, and for comp, we actually sometimes went to Weber County Fairgrounds. Some we went to elementary school on the other side of the freeway at 2600. So, I mean, there's a lot of parks, a lot of places. And sure, I mean, if you're just a rec coach that doesn't want to go too far, there's a lot of places to go. So, I mean, even if you don't, and you don't need a ginormous field, I guess that's the point for usually for soccer. I mean, unless you're doing some 6-on-6 or some crazy amount of people, you have youth that need a 15 by 15, area just to do some footwork. So anyway, I don't think there's any issue with that. And I've seen fields that had 15 teams on it at one point. So it's, to me, I don't think there's any point to understanding your point that SWAT's not paying the taxes, the citizens are making the taxes, and we need to figure out a little more balance as to who's coughing up the dough for those cleats that, when it's just come off a rain and kids love it rains and that's the best time for soccer. But anyway, because they slide everywhere and parents love that cleaning the uniforms. But so I get your point, but I don't think there's going to be as an issue as we're thinking about it is. So, but as we do get bigger, we need to have more fields, and I think that's where we're headed.
Well,
So
let's hope that's not a problem. And somebody said this is the fastest growing sport other than pickleball for old people. So you're 15 years ago, it's probably doubled or tripled the number of participants. But anyway, comments, any further questions? John?
I would just add that from the staff perspective, having a flat fee with some very clear, this is when they can use it, is very easy to manage from our perspective. And so I'll show it real quick on the screen, but kind of what I've put in here in the fee schedule is I've taken out all the deletions, meaning that if it's a random person off the street trying to do the activities, it would stay like it is. And then there at the bottom, it says for a league partner, it'd be as set by the council. So there'd be this conversation if there was a request to change it again, that would come back to the council in the future. So that would be what we would recommend, or I would recommend for the language in the ordinance. And then it would be good though in your motion to set that amount for SWAT so that we know what to charge them, because I'm not sure you've settled on that number yet. But so that's.
I think it should be $14,000, and I think it should include 6 days a week, as they mentioned, just for convenience on staff to be able to manage it all and to let their coaches get the fields as they need throughout the week for practices. So I recommend that, but I'm ready to do a motion when you guys are.
Just a question on that. Do we say in our language specifically 14,000 a year, or do we go with the laid out 150 per field or 250 per park per day?
I think the flat number either per season or per year would be
see.
easier to
Okay.
administer.
but we need to say that, spring is already done. We're not gonna,
Yeah.
right? Isn't that what we were saying? Okay.
Yeah.
And another comment to throw a wrench in your guys' thoughts. We like the thoughts, by the way. But we are in retention ponds, so there's been many seasons where we've lost the use of most of the parks for 2-3 weeks at a time. And we've had to move all of our games to other
2 or 3
cities
seasons at a
or
time.
2 or 3 seasons. So the flat fee is great, but I don't know how we'd handle that if we lost the use of them for half a season or more.
Council, if you gave staff the authority to basically take that percentage and back it out, we can refund that amount to them.
Agreed.
Good idea.
So season would be better. Okay.
Season might work better.
If you did 7,000 per season, it'd be easier to adjust that like 20% off,
Okay, John, Councilmember Barker?
The only, and maybe I'm getting hung up, but the only thing I don't like is to say it's reserved 6 nights a week. I still like the first come, first serve, like you say, for practices. That would be, you get the flat fee, but you still get but if you need to schedule a game, then you can schedule a game. That's my suggestion, but.
So what we'll do, council, is we'll just block it out so no one can reserve it. And then in that way, soccer kind of has the first priority during the season because they know it's blocked out. And then we will let them reserve games if you'd like that.
So John, under that proposal, if a city resident calls up and wants to use the field for whatever they want, a city family event, turkey bowl, whatever like that, Are you saying they're blocked out from reserving citizens in the community?
We would let them know if they wanted to use one of the 4 parks that they can't be reserved. But if they wanted to use one of the other parks, we could reserve that, including, Oak Lawn, Loman View, and the North Ogden Park. So we'd give them an option to reserve one of those too.
Okay. All right, do you need a motion, John, then to amend the fee schedule accordingly to the things that were discussed plus this issue?
Yes.
And do we have any more comments or concerns from our folks at SWAT? Any other concerns or questions of the council?
So
You're good? All right. Then we need a motion, council members.
So I move that we approve this resolution for the consolidated fee schedule amendments with a specific mention that we have an agreement with SWAT Soccer that they will pay $7,000 per season moving forward to be able to block out the fields during their season for 6 days a week. Did I say that okay, John?
Meaning that no one else can reserve it those 6 days a week.
Yeah,
But they get first rights on Saturdays.
yes.
Okay.
And we're not going to charge them for their comp games midweek or their rain out reschedules midweek.
Do you want me to restate anything better or?
No, I
Are
think
you
that's
okay?
good. And then this is resolution 02-2025.
Okay, okay, I'm just gonna start fresh. I move that we approve resolution 02-2025, which is a resolution for the consolidated fee schedule amendments, with specific mention that we are allowing SWAT Soccer to have access to the fields that have been mentioned for $7,000 per season, 6 days a week.
Second.
To that, any further discussions? This being resolution 02-2025 would require a roll call vote. We'll start with you, Councilmember Severing,
Yes.
Councilmember Pulver,
Yes.
Councilmember Watson,
Yes.
Councilmember Dowpaz.
Yes.
Councilmember Barker.
Yes.
Resolution passes unanimously. All right, we'll move on to,
Thanks so much, you
Thanks
guys.
for all you do.
thank you. Good luck to you. Item number 7 is a discussion or an action to consider a resolution amending the city events partnership. Once again, this will be presented by our city manager and attorney John Call, and this is in regards to resolution 03-2025.
Thank you, Mayor. And council, what you'll find is that we'll start skipping some numbers, not in how they're talked about, but how they're approved. But we're trying to take, for clarity reasons, if a resolution makes it in the packet, then we give it an official number. And if it's not passed, then it ends up in the official records as unpassed or not adopted. So tonight, the resolution set the budget hearing, not passed. And so that's the way that we're going to keep moving forward. Council, this is essentially the resolution you adopted last year for our partner program, of which SWAT was one of them. We left the Utah Special Olympics off of that, and they are using our pool on a week from Saturday. And we don't want to charge them because it's a good noble cause, and it's even more noble when the council members jump in the freezing water and participate in the event. So we're just recommending we add the Special Olympics as a named partner so that we can continue to do that with them. So, and they come with all the requisite insurance and stuff. In fact, of all the users of our facilities, they're probably the most insured and most safety conscious for this event. So.
Any questions of Mr. Call? Mr. Pulver?
So what's the number?
It is 03
03.
dash 2025, resolution 03-2025. Councilmember Barker?
Just a comment, didn't feel very noble last year jumping in the water. This year it might be different. Yeah.
All right. Do we have a motion then to add Special Olympics?
Mayor, I motion to approve resolution 03-2025, which is amending the city policy for supported and partnered events and activities.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Pulver. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Watson. Are there any further questions of Mr. Call or further discussion? This also being a resolution will require a roll call vote. Start with you, Councilmember Severing.
Yes.
Councilmember Pulver.
Yes.
Councilmember Watson.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalpas.
Yes.
Councilmember Barker.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Move on to item number 8. This is a discussion or action to approve the contract for the water line project. This is in regards to agreement A1-2025. And the presenter will be our Public Works Director and Assistant City Manager, Mr. Dave Espinosa.
Mayor, council, so this is a little unique in that we don't typically bring these water line project to the council. But this one was just, it was just unique enough that we felt like we should bring you guys in and look at this. There was 2 parts to it because the first part, it was more than the budgeted amount. We budgeted $1 million this year, knowing that this project was going to probably straddle 2 years. So we have $1 million in this year, which we won't hit that $1 million mark because they're not even going to start construction till like April 15th. And then the second part was just because we really couldn't break this up as like 2 projects. Because it's on 1700, it's a straightaway. It's not like where if you get into the neighborhoods, it's like, oh, well, we can do this piece and then stop work, get another bid out and then restart on this piece, right? With 1700, it was going to cause delays it would have been a long-term problem. Like if we would have stopped at 750, for instance, I mean, it would have still been causing, construction problems on either side of it. And so we just felt like if we brought this together as one project, brought it to the council with the understanding that we have been planning this in our 5-year plan. This was one of the things that has been in our 5-year plan. Typically, we put anywhere from $600,000 to $800,000 every year to do water line projects. We didn't put any money in the 24 budget because we were planning on doing this. Did this one, we put the $1 million in there for this year and next year. Didn't put that additional money. If you look at the 5-year project list, I think we have that too, if we want to pull it up, to give you guys an idea. And Eric almost hit it right on the nose. So, this was 2 years ago. I think he projected that thing to be about 1.7 and we almost landed exactly at that. I think it's at 1.6500. So, 50. And so, it was just bringing it to the council to see if we could get you guys to approve the project, because that would basically be tying you guys into funding some of that money going into next budget year. And so you'll see the 1.7 that we already had. We projected that for next year. Like I said, we'll use part of the $1 million this year and finish up the rest of the project in next year's budget. To give you guys another idea, that we also are going to be able to use impact fees on this because it's a big upgrading project. So most of the water lines over there are 6 or 8 inch. We're going to go to 12, in some places 14, because of, where we're taking that water on 1700 is taking it all the way, down to Washington, where most of our density is at. And so we knew we had to upsize that line and make it be something that would last us long term, as far as all the density that would be put down there. So that will be our main trunk line for that lower portion. So we'll be able to use those impact fee monies. Right now, Jamie said we have about 600,000 in impact fee money. Some of it will go to the 3,300 water line stuff we've done. Some of it will finish up the tank stuff we did over at the Randall's tank. And then the rest of it, we should be able to use down here at 1,700 and roll into what we're going to use for next year's budget with this contract. Is there any questions for me as far as the parameters of the project or anything like that? Jason and Eric sat down with the the one that won the RFP bid. And we were very strict about how we needed to have this schedule done. Like I said, it's gonna be April 15th. We're giving them till October 31st. He says that he is going to shoot for October 1st. So I mean, we're talking about a 6-month window. Like I said, if we would have broke it up into 2 different projects, we would have had about 4 months worth of work. We would have stopped for about 4 or 6 months, and then we would have started back up again down there. And it would have been, it would have been causing all the same people, some problems. So we figured if we can do it in one project, get it all done in a 6-month period, and get them out of there would probably be the best thing for us.
What questions do you have for Mr. Espinosa? Councilmember Pulver?
So, is this down the center line of the road? I was trying to remember, I can't remember the pic.
A lot of it is,
Okay.
So just to give you guys an idea, we have a lot of water lines in there.
Mhm.
So, we have our water line, Bonavista has their water line, and then Bonavista has actually an existing old line. A lot of our running line is going to be close to where Bonavista's old, abandoned line is. So there will be places where we'll take out that pipe, and keep moving. But they've found a pretty good running line, and it is pretty much down the center of that road there.
Okay, so that's gonna impact, I mean, I know the people that live around there, anytime there's any construction on 1700, they cringe because it becomes a racetrack through their neighborhood,
Correct.
through like 15, where they outlet at 1500 there onto Mountain Road. So I guess that would be the only concern is just,
And that was another big
Yeah.
conversation with this contractor was that the traffic control is gonna be something. We actually went down there with them and explained, from Fruitland to, as long as where that open channel is, it's very narrow. So it's like, you're gonna have to do shutdowns, which means we're gonna have to move traffic around.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to be very good at making sure everybody understands those detours and that kind of stuff. And so we really feel good about this contractor. They've been in business for 30 years. They do a lot of work for big cities, Salt Lake, Ogden. They've been on an Ogden's, basically like repair list for like 7 years, which is like, if you're like almost a preferred vendor. So we feel really good about who we got to win who won the bid. So we
So-
definitely think that'll be.
so we're not gonna add any curb and gutter to 1700, that part of this project. That's because this is the precursor to fixing the road, because you want to get everything under the road fixed first before we do anything. Okay.
Correct.
Councilmember Watson?
I was just wondering if, in general, if we could make a recommendation to our police force to watch those neighborhood roads a little bit closer, specifically when it's detoured through the neighborhood, because we have had complaints before.
And we can
I don't
definitely,
know.
I'll definitely work close with the police and let them know when we have a major, like a shutdown to watch some of those detoured areas.
Yeah, thank you.
That's no problem.
So Dave, refresh my memory. A good portion of that's going to be paid out of the water fund balance, right?
Correct.
And impact fees.
And impact fees, yep.
But this expenditure will be pretty close, if not exceed our depreciation in the funds, as I recall.
So it'll get us down to, so with her having it programmed in, and it's on that sheet, Joan.
Yeah.
We will still have, we'll be down into about $1 million.
Right.
Yep.
But what I'm saying is, as we spend equal to or more than we depreciate each year, we do dig into that fund balance.
Yeah,
And we cause increased depreciation, which has an effect on water rates,
correct.
just so council knows. I mean, this is obviously something we have to do, but it's going to result in additional depreciation, which could result in additional increase to water rates.
And that's part of the reason, Mayor, that in fiscal year 2027, you can see, there's not a big project recommended. It's to your point, we're speeding up our spending. So if we don't pause, then all we will do is continue to accelerate that issue. So right now on our 5-year schedule, it's to pause in 2027 and not do a big project, so that we can catch ourselves back up.
Yeah, there's two aspects. It's building the fund balance, which we know we need to do for the next tank we have to replace, right? But it also has an effect on the income statement of the enterprise fund by increasing depreciation every time we do a major project. That's one of the reasons we had to increase water rates this last year, is to cover the depreciation for the new water tank. So these are things that have to be done, but just know the ramifications of these as we catch up and right size and replace pipes in the city that need to be done. There is ramification to that.
And you're 100% right, because this is another example of that, because us going from 6 and 8 inch pipe up to 12 and 14 inch pipe is going to increase the depreciation quite a bit too, so.
Got to get ready for all those ADUs,
Yes,
Dave.
sir. Yes, sir.
So, okay, any other questions?
I was just curious, that depreciation fund that's left, is that just for the water department?
Say what?
Water fund, is that depreciation specific to water fund?
On this graph, it's depreciation for the water fund, but every fund has its own
Right.
depreciation
That's what I was-
number.
yeah.
But this will relate to the water fund specifically. Okay. Then I would look for a motion to approve the contract for the water line project on 1700. This is agreement A1-2025. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I move that we approve contract A1 2025 for the water line project on 1700 North.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Watson. Any further questions? Mr. Espinosa, then we'll take a roll call vote, starting with you, Councilmember Severing,
Yes.
Councilmember Pulver,
Yes.
Councilmember Watson.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalpaz.
Yes.
And Councilmember Barker.
Yes.
And I think it is important, Dave, to make sure we get this out on social media, et cetera. I know last time we closed 1700, we had some issues. And so I think giving advance notice and making sure they know what the detour route is, what'll be in effect, would be important, even if we have to hang hangers on the doors.
And I think the
You have a
door knockers
digital
are
sign.
planned on that
Do more
project.
things.
We just need to make sure it's open on Mother's Day.
So, okay, I would say that motion passes unanimously. We'll move on now to any public comments from anyone online or those who are here in the audience who would like to comment. Once again, just reminding of our public comment rules of they're going to be down here in 10. So anyone who would like to comment now, please step up to the podium. Please limit your comments to no longer than 5 minutes, or if you're online, please raise your hand and Mr. Call will open up Zoom so you can speak. Anyone? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. John, do you see anyone online?
Nope.
All right, we'll move on to item number 9 tonight, which is mayor, council, and staff comments. I've asked members of the council during their comments to inform the public of anything regarding the responsibilities they have as a liaison that they'd like to communicate to the public. But before we do that, let's see if we have any comments from staff. Joyce? Scott? Dave? Barney? Okay. John?
If the council would like, I could give you some updates on capital project stuff.
If the council would like, feel free.
So the 2550 detention basin relocation, we've been working with the engineer and have a plan to construct potentially a temporary basin should we have the need on the old basin to move it. We could do that for a fairly small amount and still leave the option open for the federal funding if and when it comes through. I say that now because, you know, obviously the federal funding is in an uproar today. So last 24 hours have been exciting. Then we also have Waterworks Park, which is a ramp funded project and a developer funded, and there is a little bit of city money, but not much, like relative, is coming in and should be done here in the next 3 months, Dave?
Yeah.
3 months. Well, the biggest hangup is warm weather so that we can get the concrete in when it's not, 14 degrees. Orton Park, Oaklawn Park, and Mountain View Park are all parks that are scheduled for playgrounds in the coming years. So if you hear questions about them, those are on our list of the next ones. Orton Park came in very favorably budget-wise. And so we're seeing what other things we can do to make sure that we're stretching that money. And I think we had two in this year. Was it Mountain View too, Dave?
So, no.
Or that's next year? Okay. So, but that'll be happening. And then the Aquatic Center rehab project is starting. The SCADA folks, that's a electronic computer control system, is getting installed. We're going to have some pumps rehabbed, and we're just going to start working through that list that the council had seen and approved in December, I think. So
Did they pick a liner person? Remember we were talking about the different.
I received an email from the liner person that we think we're going to go with yesterday, but we haven't officially selected anybody yet. Tyler and Jamie are still double checking references and making sure. The hard thing about the liner is we can't install it until the new playground in the pool is installed, because you can't do the one after the other. So, and the playground, there's not enough time to get it in before this season. So the playground will come in the fall and the liner will come in right behind it, or in the spring following. So that's it.
Mr. Call, did you want to share the good news about RAP extending the grant?
Yeah, they are extending the detention basin grant, or at least that's what Shelley had reached out and asked what was going on. I mentioned the federal dollars had been delayed again, and she said, well, send me an extension letter, and it's favorable that it would be extended. So that was really good news. They've been really good partners. And part of that, council, we looked at our projects and we didn't apply for a ramp grant this year. We have 3 projects that are in extensions, and we didn't feel it was good to be asking for more money while we're still trying to finish those. So we've held off for a year, but hopefully they'll all get wrapped up, and then they'll all get ramped up. Anyways, but it's been such a good program for our city, and the county and the folks who administer that have been really, really easy to work with. So it's been great.
Okay, thank you, John. Let's see, Councilmember Watson, did you have anything on administration you'd like to share?
Yes, sorry, I had written down previously that I was on the 4th week for council reports, so I must be ahead of the game here. But I still wanted to share what I collected from Justin at the pool at the Aquatic Center. He said right now they're working on recruiting 2025 staff, and they are finalizing training and events on the calendar. The Polar Plunge, as we've already heard, is happening on February 8th. So get ready to jump in. Councilmember Barker, again, you can represent. Just kidding. I'm not sure I'll be the one. The lifeguard instruction begins in February. You can still sign up for that class. There's winter maintenance, and that's already been brought up, happening, inventory happening, group reservations are open and filling up, swim lessons, registration begins April 1st. And then from Katie at the HR, she says, we're hiring lateral officers, those who are currently in the post academy who are on track to graduate. We're not only hiring lateral officers, also those who are currently in post academy on track to graduate, also hiring recreation coordinator and crossing guards. So visit the website for that.
Did you have a question, Councilmember Severing?
No, I was just going to share some comments.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Is that okay? Because it's part of staff
Done.
or part of a council comments?
Yeah.
That's what I
I mean,
meant.
your report wasn't due this time, but you're
No, I
welcome to
don't
comment.
have a report, but
Okay, and yeah, go ahead.
council may have seen today that we had some discussion on cottage kitchens. And I conferred with Scott before the meeting, so they're asking that we give them direction as to whether we want to pursue as a council and as a city, making that available, and if so, what parameters. So Scott, was that pretty much what you're looking for? So I guess you would want us to maybe decide whether we
Certainly willing to look at that as a problem, but I'm looking for direction because I haven't been told directly to go.
So council, where would we like to go? I know there's a lady down on 1050, the bottom of 1050. She makes sourdough bread that looks really, really good. And every time I drive by, I don't have any cash with me. So I know there must be some people that are maybe in need of having that extra income. But as Scott indicated, there may be a need to have some kind of parameters around it for the ordinance.
Yeah, I mean, it's governed by the state, but at the same time, currently the city doesn't permit it. And I guess that was something I found during my campaigning, is that there were several people like, well, why can't we do that? I don't know. So I fully support looking into it. So it's something like you said, if you need to make a few more dollars, then it's not like a full on commercial kitchen. Well, it could be, I guess. I know there's some people that do I mean, they sell chocolate stuff and they have literally a kitchen in their basement. But I think the biggest thing is that if we don't regulate it, they're just going to do it on their own anyway. So it's kind of like, I'd rather have it regulated, not regulated, but following the state, and then we get a business fee for it. That would be
Yeah, I don't think we have any in the city because we don't have any business licenses
for them.
for that at the
Correct.
current time. So apparently if it's going on in the city, it's going on without a license.
Yep.
So would we like the staff to pursue that through the proper channels?
Yes. for
Yes.
me.
Okay, Scott, sounds like I see some heads nodding. It's not a decision obviously tonight because it's not on the agenda, but I think the council would like to hear some ideas on how that could be implemented.
Thank you, Mayor. And then I'm just thinking on this polar plunge. I think I would follow the mayor in doing that myself if he were willing to participate in that polar plunge.
Good for
Thanks.
information. So
Thanks for that information.
So- there's maybe some people who wouldn't get a doctor's note, just saying.
cheapers.
Yeah, I could probably get one at this point in time. Okay, thanks, Councilmember Severing. Councilmember Dalpaz?
I don't want to steal Councilwoman Watson's thunder, but I am excited to go to the Capitol tomorrow with the Youth Council. So she and I and Shelley are all driving youth down there. And sounds like we've got a good tour lined up, and we'll be able to listen to the legislative session for a bit. And I'm stoked because it's going to be my first time there.
Perfect. Thanks for volunteering to go down.
Yes, thank you for your help.
Well, Councilmember Pulver.
Just a couple of things. One is the budget committee. The first meeting we're going to do is the 19th of February. I just got to put an agenda together and work with Joyce to get that on. And then a couple of thoughts, and this is just to ruminate on, to whether or not to reinvigorate because we had an economic development committee, and whether or not that's worthwhile. I know I was jibber jabbering with one of the planning commission, just, outside Smith's, and he's like, why don't we have that? Anyway, just something to think about. And then also something I haven't really talked about it too much, but I just want to maybe sprinkle it right now, is that I think there's, since we're talking about business licenses overall, and, maybe there's a different way we can do some fee structures as a result of that. I'd been looking at different cities for other reasons, and I just noticed that there is a massive difference when it comes to business licenses. Ours are more blanket with just a little sprinkling, and there's some cities that just have 2 pages of different, if you're this business, it costs you this. It's like, holy cow. So I don't know. It's something to think about, and something I'll work with John on the side, maybe.
Yeah, I was taken back. My wife pays $187 for a business license in Far West. $187.
So yeah, we could
So-
triple the cost for the massage therapy places, maybe.
Maybe.
Just
yeah.
saying. Anyway,
Um,
moving on. Sorry.
Councilmember Pulver, did you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, unless Public Works guy has anything over there that he wants to talk about. Okay.
Looks like no.
We're saving salt, I guess, right?
So
So like, well, week 3 with no
all
snowplow?
sand and labor. Right? And Councilmember Pulver, if you would like to pursue an economic development, I would suggest we set some rules. As I've reviewed that and historically been involved in that, it's become a city beautification. So we need to have a charter that's meaningful and get the right people on that committee. I don't think anybody's objects to that as long as it
Focus.
does its job and focuses and has a purpose
Okay.
to do. Okay, Councilmember Barker
Yeah.
of Darker.
Yeah, exactly. If I was actually wearing a hat, I'd switch it over to my other hat today. I'm not. Today's actually a pretty historic day as a fire department. We signed, or the county commissioner signed a paramedic license for Weber or Northview Fire District, which not many people realize. To give you a little education, so Northview, we actually have 4 paramedics on a day right now, but under yesterday's law, they could come to your house and not act as a paramedic because the state and the county law rules would not allow it. So if you're having a heart attack up in, for example, the mayor's neighborhood, it'd take 15 minutes to get a paramedic there, even though our guys are on scene, but they cannot act as a paramedic. But now, as of today, we can now act as paramedics. So we're improving better service to our community. And we've been fighting for this for, I don't know how many years. And it finally took the mayor's help to get some commissioners involved, and it got approved. So today, so it's a good.
It's actually big news. I didn't understand this till I became involved, but I always wondered why in Ogden City, truck and paramedic would show up, because our paramedics, although very qualified, couldn't administer certain life-saving things. This will allow them now to do that. It'll decrease our response time, make response time better, and should help save lives and make our community safer. So I want to commend Councilmember Barker and the chief and those involved at the fire department. They worked very hard to get this. It's been an ongoing thing for a number of years. So congratulations to Northview Fire Department. Appreciate it. Also, I would like to just maybe comment on a few things. I'd like to thank Councilmember Barker, who chairs our audit committee. Our audit report has been submitted to the state. It will be on the next agenda for the council to see that. We did receive a clean opinion. One small finding, I think, in the audit. And Jamie and her team, and I know John was involved in that. Takes a lot of work to get that done, and so we truly appreciate their efforts. But that has been reviewed by the audit committee and submitted to the state, and will be brought by Councilmember Barker, chair of the audit committee, to review.
Hopefully Jamie's coming too.
Oh, yeah.
So
That
he's
would-
not gonna discuss the pension and how the liability works. Is that?
Yeah, he's going to get into that in depth. Did receive information from Jamie. We're basically halfway through our fiscal 25 year. Expenses are looking in line at about 48%. And the revenue seemed to be in line. Most of you saw the sales tax report. It was down 23%, the money received recently, but if you remember, the month before was up 22%. But overall, puts us in a position we're slightly behind budget on sales tax. So we'll see what the rest of the year has to bring. But so far, things are looking pretty good. No departments whose expenses are out of line or dramatic shortfalls in revenue. Interest income seems to continue to be rolling in at a good pace. Rates haven't dropped as fast as I think people anticipated, so interest income is good. Do look forward to the budget committee starting. Met with John. I think John has met with you, Councilmember Pulver. We're taking a little bit different approach, more of a macro approach of looking at the best way to operate processes in the city and programs, and if there's alternative ways, better ways to do that. But, you know, they're welcome to get as deep as they want, but, you know, detailed line items have been reviewed now by citizens for a couple of years. I know there's some curiosity about this from citizens. I've had inquired, and I know from some members of the council. One thing that I think is going to be addressed by the budget committee, is my understanding, is a review of where the stipend is for council members. I believe that
We
was-
can.
I think that was brought up by a member to me, that they wanted to review that to see where it's at. So we'll see where that shortly lands and where the budget looks like. So with that, I don't have any other comments. Anyone else have a comment, council?
So you don't want to look into mayor, just council, is that what you're saying?
You can just look at council. However, if you'd like to look, you know, you've heard my approach on it. Don't want to shortchange the next mayor. But that's something that I don't particularly need at this time in my